Hello, this is Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So my social media links will be provided along with my Substack, my email. Buy me a coffee. You support and you want to support, that is, and you like my work, click on that link and support. And audio platforms. My audio platforms, I'm on Audible, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify for podcasters, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Pandora, and I'm looking to grow to wherever you enjoy your podcast. I'm definitely on there. So this episode is the last part of the series that I have done on Bob Dylan. So in this part, I'm gonna dive into his music, get my thoughts on it, and also I'm going to plug the next artist towards the end with 3 clues. Alright, so let's get into it. Okay, to note is actually before this start of me talking about Bob Dylan in the second album, it's actually the Traveling Wilburys. Traveling Wilburys. All right, before I begin, I'm going to highlight 3 parts of Bob Dylan's career, with his second album, and then I'm gonna talk about when he partnered with the Traveling Wilburys, and I'm going to focus in on talking about the later parts, song to wrap everything up with how, everything transitioned in his later years with music. All right, so here we go. The Freewheeling Bob Dylan. This is the last song on Bob Dylan's second album. It's a rewrite of Lead Belly's We Shall Be Free, which was recorded with Woody Guthrie and Sonny Terry in 1944. Dylan admired all of these singers, but Guthrie was his early idol. In 1961, when Guthrie was hospitalized with Hutchinson's disease in Greystone Park Psychiatric Hospital in New Jersey, Dylan visited him. And I had mentioned that before, and I think it really is a testament to more along the lines, you see the mentality of songwriters who really having a versus who are they say that they want something but don't actually mean what they say, and it's really something to see and think about, that Bob Dylan wanted to meet him, Woody Guthrie, in the midst of all these things, in the midst of his mental illness, to show his admiration and appreciation for him. All right, so Dylan's visit were to an apartment nearby where Guthrie spent his Sundays as an outpatient. 2 years later, Dylan released a song called Last Thoughts on Woody Guthrie in tribute. Guthrie died in 1967. The roots of I Shall Be Free go forever back than that 1944 song, though. Dylan's particular vision is a satirical, talking blues song about a drunk who gets called by the president and is asked for advice on how to make the country better. There's more to it than that, but the whole thing is so winding and absurd that trying to pin down exactly what it is about ends up sounding equally winding and absurd. There may be more than humor at play here, though. In his early career, Dylan made his name with political songs and was taken on as a sort of political mascot by the progressive intellectual crowd of the day. In the song, President Kennedy asked Dylan, who plays the character of a hard-drinking and irrational man, "My friend, Bob, what do we need to make the country grow?" This may be Dylan's poking fun at his own status or the people confronting that status upon him, or both. Later, the song references Willie Mays. Yul Brynner, I believe, was the actor. He was more well known for westerns, and particularly Westworld, and then I believe The King and I. Charles D. Gall and Robert Louis Stevenson. Mays was a great baseball player enshrined in the Hall of Fame. Brynner was a popular actor. He also showed up in the lyric to the 80s hit One Night in Bangkok. Charles de Gaulle was the French general that led the French resistance against Nazi occupation in World War II. Scottish writer Robert Louis Stevenson wrote Treasure Island, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, A Child's Garden of Verse, and many other books. And the song's copyright filling, the names Yul Brynner, Charles de Gaulle, Ernest Borgnine, and some others were changed, possibly for legal reasons. All right, so before I get into talking about the Traveling Wilburys, I think it's very interesting because when I first, get my thoughts about them. When I first saw their songs, heard and saw their songs, I was a fan of watching things on VH1 Classic. And I think music videos have a really unique way of expressing the concrete ideas of what these songs are saying, the songwriter is saying, and what the producers are saying, thinking about, and all of these things, and collaborating together and forming music videos as a way of visually telling a story. And I think with how everything is said and done, particularly with the Traveling Wilburys, it's really interesting because it goes back to reminding me, and I'm going to share other folks, about the heart and the root of bluegrass, and bluegrass originated and is part of the foundation of America, bluegrass roots, and having people sing in quartets, sing together, and sing about the morals of their time and their generation, and everything else in between. And I think they put a really unique spin on all these things. All right, so the Traveling Wilburys. Based on the accomplishment of their members, Traveling Wilburys were the most super of super groups. The lineup was Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Roy Orbison, and Jeff Lynne of ELO. All featured members of the Rock Band and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Harrison was the leader of the group. It came together when he needed a B-side for a single. He got his friend Jeff Lynne to work on it with him, and Bob Dylan offered use of his garage studio. Tom Petty and Roy Orbison came along. So the five superstars found themselves together writing and recording the song on the spot, handled with care. They had such a good time making it and were so impressed with the results, they decided to form a band and include the song on a full album, which they recorded a month later. They were named after the slang term George Harrison Jeff Lynne gave to studio equipment. The pair referred to equalizers and limiters as Wilburys, as all in Wilbury that makes and the mix. Like the Ramones, each member took a nickname with the band and named it. Although they changed their names for each album, Harrison was Neilson Wilbury for the first album and Spike Wilbury for the second. With the exception of Handle with Care, the songs on their first album were all written and recorded in a 2-week span at the house of Dave Stewart of Eurythmics. And you remember the Eurythmics, they were, from my point of view, really a powerhouse sort of band. What I'm saying about this is that they took the concepts of things that people struggle with as far as monetary exploitation, and particularly highlighting the ideas and the moralities of the 80s, access. Now everything go. And then sometimes less is more, but more along the lines of more is definitely everything that you need. And out of this, come on, baby, don't do that. Come on, sweetheart. And out of this, it formed all these artistic, the way the Eurythmics presented their music, it was really pushing the means of art and music to the next level, to along the lines of the mastery that Kate Bush was doing around the same time, and Peter Gabriel, and all of these people mastering the benefits of using the visual format to tell a story and to connect people with in other ways that is sort of dreamlike, All right, so maybe I'm still talking, baby. Don't come around here no more. With the hit of Tom Petty, of course, in 1985 with a Southern Accent album, Stewart bought a place in Encino area of Los Angeles and built a small studio on the grounds. His home became a gathering spot for the future Wilburys, and then they decided to make their album. Stewart gave them the keys, and the rest, as you say, is history. Unfortunately, Roy Orbison died in December of 1988, just 2 months after their first album was released. The remaining Wilburys decided to make another album without him, which released in 1990. All right, to end and wrap up everything, this is from 2020, from the album Rough and Rowdy Ways, My Own Version of You. Dylan sings about some unspecific person constructing a new human being out of strange parts and ideas. We're never told who Dylan is inhabiting. As he sings from a first-person perspective, we only know it's someone determined to construct a new life form. Tony Atwood at Untold Dylan thinks that Dylan is inhabiting fans and critics and talking about building a new Dylan as they want to see him. It's an interesting idea worth resurfacing and checking out, but it's pretty subjective. What we do know for certain is that some of the allusions and references in the song can be pinned down definitively. So, an explanation of some of these references is as said. I've been visiting mosques and monasteries. A mosque and a Muslim house of worship. Monastery is a more general term for places where monks of various religions traditionally live, looking for the necessary body parts, limbs and livers and brains and hearts. This is a reference to the Frankenstein's monster. For a couple of hundred years, the fictional character has been a mainstay in American culture. It first appeared in the 1818 novel Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus by English author Mary Shelley. Since then, it's appeared in countless film stories and songs. It becomes a metaphor for the dangers of both science and the ego. The original story is about a scientist, Dr. Frankenstein, who builds a creature out of various parts in a quest to understand life. The creature ends up being a dangerous monster beyond Dr. Frankenstein's control. To build a Frankenstein monster, then, is to be dangerously ambitious and to encroach on things we are not equipped to understand or control. Well, it must be the winter of my disconnecting. American author John Steinbeck, best known for The Grapes of Wrath and of Mice and Man, published his last book, The Winter of Our Disconnect, in 1961. He borrowed the title from Richard III by William Shakespeare, which has the lines, "Now is the winter of our disconnect. Make glorious summer of the sun, or our son of York." The primary theme of Steinbeck's novel is how social pressures force people into decisions that make them unhappy. And it begs the question also about the concept and the idea of where to take a stand, and sort of along the lines of where you draw your line in the sand, and what makes you take a step back and really look at things and really value things and redirect things that's our importance, that is of value, that is of meaning. And the concept of all of these things, and then what gives you an anchor to be the person that you want to be. It can go a lot of ways. Taking the moral compass of what anchors you down to being a decent person versus the concept of what anchors you down and losing your way, and all of these things, what do they connect to? I think it takes the Scarface of the persona and the Godfather Vigilante, the kind of persona. This reference to the actor Al Pacino in the film 1972's American film The Godfather. The movie, in turn, is centered around a crime, family, and power. It's one of the most recognizable and referenced films in the United States. And it goes on to say, it talks about the Indian language and the ancient language of the Arabic spoken around North Africa and the Middle East, and to improve on to these things and discussing all these things. And also it goes down to talk about this too, of Julius Caesar. And as I asked, what would Julius Caesar do? So, from out of this turns the mention of his name here is a reference to a 2000 trend among American Christians, particularly evangelical Christians. These devotees frequently use the question, what would Jesus do, as a way to make good moral decisions in life. In the biblical Matthew 20:21 says, Jesus is saying, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. The Christian world has a wide range of interpretations considering the depth of meaning to the passage, but here Dylan's using it for some clever wordplay. And, again, from my point of view, I think it's measuring out the whole ideas of what is, in terms of what Jesus is saying, what is secular and what is sacred. You begging the terms of how you commingle yourself in these things as you go about yourself in life. And it's very clever that Bob Dylan is bringing surface to this as a means to put more depth in the interpretation of what he's saying in this song. Dylan references Caesar another time in rough and rowdy ways in the song Crossing Rubicon. So, I'm going to make you play the piano like Lennon Russell, like Liberance at St. John the Apostle. Leon Russell was a prolific and highly influential American singer-musician. He did all kinds of things in the industry, but initially made his name playing piano and instruments. He started playing at the age of 4. Elton John had cited him as a key inspiration. Russell passed away in 2016. Liberance was also an important American pianist, like Russell. He was a piano prodigy. St. John the Apostle was one of the 12 apostles of Jesus, with apostle basically being a key Jesus follower and member of his inner circle. I'll see you maybe on Judgment Day. Judgment Day refers to the Christian concept that one day the world as we know it will end and all people will be judged for their moral standing. I'll be at the Back Horse Tavern on Armageddon Street. In a Bible book or Revelation, Armageddon is the name as the place where the armies will gather for the great war that is supposed to happen at the end of time. Also in the book of Revelation, the third horseman of the apocalypse, the evil creatures that usher in the end of the world. He rides a black horse and symbolizes famine. He also appears another time in Rough and Rowdy Ways, where he is the central character in Black Rider. Can you tell me what it means to be or not to be? And again, this is a Shakespearean quote, to be or not to be, going along the lines of Hamlet. And I think it's very interesting to say something like that, because with Hamlet, with the complex of he knows everything, and he can see everything from all these different perspectives, and the fact of seeing everything from all these different perspectives crippleizes him. And then the whole notion of vengeance and everything else of his family and the Oedipus complex going on in there, and it's just a whole thing with that. But it's very interesting that all these ties, the literature aspects of moral corruption is seeping into the way that Bob Dylan is speaking on things and saying things in his music, and that why we can see how he is using poetry, literature to rescind the folk music in a different way. So, back to Hamlet. It opens a monologue that asks whether life is worth living at all. It's also one of the most commonly referenced lines in U.S. culture, so common that many people use it wouldn't be able to identify where it even originally came from. Whether children, women, and children are sold into slavery long before First Crusades, way back before England or America were made. And again, we're talking about what is referenced in this song. The Trojans were a people of the ancient world. They lived in the city of Troy, which stood in what is today the nation of Turkey. In the U.S., they are most remembered today for their involvement in the Trojan War, which itself is best remembered for the appearance of the Trojan horse, a giant wooden horse hiding soldiers. The Greeks of Troy then sold the women and children of the city into slavery. During the First Crusades, when it occurred from 1096 to 1099 AD, the name referenced a military campaign launched by the Latin Church. Its primary objective was to invade the Holy Land and take it back from Islamic control. Now, we're seeping into the psychological aspects of this. So Mr. Freud with his dreams, Mr. Marx with his acts. I was referencing this song. Okay, so let's talk about Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is one of the most important figures in the history of psychiatry and the study of the human mind. Freud did a lot of work studying dreams and explaining their significance. His models for the human mind and for dreams are largely discredited today, but his importance to the field of psychology is unquestioned. And there's gray areas with that because it's kind of strange to, not kind of strange, it is strange to, again, from what I understand about Sigmund Freud, to link everything to repressed urges, for sexual urges, or all these things, and these, the idea of which I mentioned before about this Oedipus complex about things, tying that into the blurred lines of the relationships between mother and child and father and child and all these things is very bizarre. But needless to say, that was a part of the psychological footprint in history. And it's, interesting how all these things play out in the modern society too. And Karl Marx was the intellectual who created the ideas of communism and socialism, so much so that the term Marxism is often used interchangeably with those ideas. The implications of Marx's ideas has frequently involved mass bloodshed, particularly with the Bolshevik Revolution and resulting the Soviet communism of Russia, which may be the reason for the Act's remark, or it may simply be that Marx took to intellectually cutting down the concepts of capitalism and viewed it as an institution to be completely destroyed. And see, there within, we see these things, and I'm going to end on this note. We see these things, it's very clear how these ideas of Marxism and socialism is influencing the era that we're living in today. And, for instance, BLM. And for instance, people, the youth, and I'm talking like I'm some old person, but I just have a unique perspective because it's really strange. I'll say it in these terms. It's strange when you don't have a sense of a reality of identity, and then when you go, unfortunately, most colleges, when you step into college, you get, unfortunately, if you allow it to get just totally swept and radicalized in these ideas about that. So, socialism, communism is okay. It works. It's good. Hey, we're just here, just sharing the wealth. Just everybody's in it, and we're okay. Not knowing there's harsh realities and there's harsh repercussions for communism. For instance, the whole idea of playing up that we're all equal. And I think it's very interesting when you redirect that concept, and which my husband and I were discussing, if you say these things from a scholarly point of view. So, for instance, saying it like this. Okay, well, you have a 4.0. Hey, why don't we just take that 4.0 and disperse it to the other students that didn't work so hard? They just, had fun. They did whatever they wanted to do. And, so we can even things out and make everybody equal. Let's take from you and give them an equal share of what you worked hard for. And, quite prevalent, the answer is no. I sacrificed. I worked. I busted my butt for this grade. Oh, well. Why did you bust your butt for these grades? I want a better life. Oh, so you want a better life. You want a better job, right? Yeah, I want a better job. Okay, so that means you don't want equality. You want to express to the world and show to the world that your hard work is worth merit and that you're above the ones that don't do these things. And you see, I think if these ideas start to be more concrete and seeing things that way, it'll help a lot with all this division that's going on. Going on, particularly I'm speaking from my perspective of what I'm experiencing as an American. It's really something to say. All right, this reaches the end. The Harboring Light, and of course feedback is greatly appreciated, so feel free to reach out to me through social media, through Substack, through my email. And you enjoy my content, please feel free to click on that link, buy me a coffee, and support. All right. Okay, so the clue is jazz and the White House. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye now.